Hey everyone, Ben Coomber Radio. I am back with Jon Mills. In part one, we talked about his bodybuilding journey, some of the reasons why he did it, about winning a pro card, and we started to get into what he experienced from a health perspective. And I'm gonna dig deeper into that now because that's kind of the area that I'm more interested in, because for me, health always comes first with the body. If you're doing something and it creates any kind of unhealthy habits, it changes, your sleep patterns, your well-being, you then need to question it. It's then not becoming conductive to a healthy lifestyle. And that's why we do this stuff, right? We do health and fitness to lead a better life. We don't want it to become our lives, which is very, very important. So Jon, welcome back.
How you doing, Ben? Hi, guys.
Good. So we're going straight into this head first. So when I was watching the film, it all seemed really nice and pretty, and things panned out nicely, and the training was going well. And then there was a point where you had a bit of a rough week. Your mindset shifted. You had a hard one, and then you got to 4 weeks out, and then it really started to show its kind of colours. Describe that transition from the first 8, 12 weeks and then the last 4 weeks, and make people aware of kind of what you experienced on a health and performance level.
Yeah, I think the first few weeks you're just getting used to measuring your food out, getting into the routine, starting to feel really good about the training. My macros, my carbs were relatively high, my fats were pretty high. So I was loving life, really. I was enjoying the structure, like any athlete, being given or ex-athlete, being given a structure to work from. Normally, I'm giving the training program and the diet, so it was nice to be on for the shoe to be on the other foot. So it was great to have that structure. And as you saw, I think it was around the time that we got invited out to some friends for a weekend festivities, I suppose. And I knew that there was going to be food and drink there that I potentially, not that I couldn't have it, but I was going to be very restricted to what I could have. And I was very focused on my training. So I suppose I was in two minds. I really wanted to focus on my training, and I wanted my diet to really be on point. But in the same respect, I was going to go out and be amongst people, and there was going to be hors d'oeuvres and appetizers and beer and wine. And it was the first time I ever felt like I didn't want to go. I wanted to isolate myself and keep myself away from everything. But in the same sense, I never felt that. I hadn't felt that before. So that in itself, I think, caused me to feel a little depressed. And it was pretty early on as well, right? So I was like, wow, we've got another 16 weeks of this, and this is, another 15 weeks of this. This is going to be tough. And I think it was just a shift. It was a realization of, okay, this is what I've chosen to do. This is my life right now. I'm going to have to isolate myself. I'm going to have to say no to certain environments, because otherwise temptation is going to be there, and I want to do this. I don't want to fail.
Mm-hmm. So when you got to 4 weeks, for me, I noticed that there was some changes starting to happen, and when you got tested afterwards by your doctor, it was evident that some changes had come about when you got into kind of the hard part of the prep. Describe what kind of happened from a health point of view, because you discussed a loss of libido. Your doctor brought up the liver function. Talk us kind of through that stuff.
I mean, we tried to do this a healthier way, right? So we did this very scientifically. Everything was specific to me. My training load and my diet restrictions or diet was related to how I was feeling on a weekly basis. But still, obviously, we were cutting. So you put the body under that sort of strain, workload stays consistent, macros go down, calories go down. The body's under a lot of pressure, it's under stress, right? Plus I'm having to do, 30 hours, 40 hours of personal training a week, plan for a wedding and train and do everything else, right? So it takes its toll mentally. I was losing sleep some days because I was so hungry that I was waking up hungry. And I think at one point I had a banana at 1 o'clock in the morning because I needed to get something in me because I couldn't sleep. I was so hungry. You put that strain on the body, as you know, the liver's gonna, all your vital organs are gonna be under pressure. So I had early. She said something like early Gilbert's syndrome. I think it was. Gilbert's disease, which is I had a liver function not failure, but there was something going on with my liver function that wasn't right. Okay, it was very minor, but it was something to worry about. Right, that was after the show. It's actually returned back to normal now. And yes, you don't have energy for your partner, and that's very real. And it's something that I felt probably is never spoken about and needed to be talked about. And actually, Jana got on and spoke about it with me, which was, it wasn't the funnest thing to talk about, but it's very real. And now I understand why my coach wanted me to take a testosterone booster. But I just decided it wasn't for me. I decided I just didn't want to put that into my body. Not because it was bad, but just, I wanted to see what happens to the body naturally.
Okay. See, this is where I find it really interesting that whether someone's going through bodybuilding or contest prep or not, there's going to be a lot of people actually in a very similar position because they've been on a very low calorie diet for too long. They've been training too hard with not enough calories for too long. And actually, outside of the conversation of contest prep and being on a diet, there's people suffering low libido, low energy, not enough time for their partner, and not enough people, and I speak to these people regularly, not enough people are standing back and going, this is not normal. I should have the energy for my partner. I should have sex drive. And actually, there's people looking at you like almost vacant. And it's almost become part of the norm, and their relationship is developed in that way. And you're like, you have to kind of bang your head a little bit and say, this is just not normal. That's not living life.
No, I agree with you. I do agree. And that's why I think if someone's going to do a contest prep, it needs to be specific, it needs to be controlled, and I think you have to get the calories back into the body gradually afterwards, and you have to get back to a point where you get to the new normal, a healthy normal, where you have your doctor involved, and you're looking at your testosterone levels, and you're looking at your liver function, and making sure that every box is ticked, and if it isn't, then you need to fix something, change something in the diet, take time off training. A lot of people won't take time off training straight after the show. They want to keep the body, so they'll eat more calories, but they'll train harder. You see that. I even did a bit of that myself. So I got pulled into that myself, even knowing what I know. So I was able to step away from that after a couple of weeks, but I did find myself trying to out-train the calories that I was putting into my body. So if I'm doing that, then, as you say, so many people it's almost like a pre-programmed to do it. So there definitely needs to be that post-show support from coaches, and again, this is something where I'd like the documentary to go and help people, is like providing maybe like a community where we can help each other. We can say, we can check each other. And make sure that people have that support and understanding that, it's okay to take time off. The body needs that time. It's okay to introduce those calories gradually. Don't just take a pill for a symptom. Taking penis enhancement, or Viagra or something like that to help with that side effect is only going to cause more problems long term, right?
100%. You're taking paracetamol for a headache. It's the exact same thing. Why have you got the headache? Why have you got these symptoms? You need to be critical, and you need to be honest. Talking about the relationship side of things, we mentioned libido. The dynamic between you and it was girlfriend at the time, now wife, changed a bit.
She was my fiance then, but
fiance at the time. Cool. You got short-tempered with each other, and again, I'm thinking that, and I see this time and time again, that there's people that are concentrating so much time on the fitness side of their life that actually their relationship does suffer. That actually, well, not suffer, but it's not as good as it could be. You don't have quite enough time for them. You don't really invest in their emotions outside of your emotions and what you're trying to achieve on a selfish level. And I think it was fascinating watching how you changed your behaviour towards her when you were in a place, when you're in not a good place.
I think you hit the nail on the head. Anybody that's going to this with their eyes open, this is one of the most selfish sports. I mean, and I think every athlete is selfish to a certain extent. You have to be. If you're focusing on a prize, you're working towards that goal, and you want to win, or you want to achieve better things, greater things for yourself, that in itself can be selfish. This in itself is, because it's all about aesthetics, it's selfish and I don't know what the word I'm looking for is. It's selfish and it's all about how I look, not how I'm. So yeah, like my relationship with Jana did, your relationship with anybody is going to be put under pressure. Jana knew, and because she works in the industry, she knew what to expect. One, she hated having the camera in her face anyway, so when we had to film, it was already a bit of a task. She fought me on this project to begin with, and then she obviously, saw the benefit from it and realised that what we really wanted to do. But yeah, like anybody that goes into this with their eyes open, your relationship needs to be strong, and your partner needs to understand fitness and health, and potentially needs to be involved in it to a greater extent than you can ever imagine. Because you're posing for 2 hours a day or an hour a day, and you need their support and help to tell you whether you're holding the position right, right. Or, Jana was making my food for me because I had nothing left. She wouldn't let me in the kitchen. I literally, I was brain dead by the end of the day. I was making stupid mistakes. I could just do my job, eat, train, and that was it. So you need that support. So it's going to put pressure on all sort of relationships.
Yeah, I mean, I won't be a spoiler, but during the documentary, you start to talk about all the mistakes that you just started to make in your everyday life, about just being a person at that point in time that just couldn't concentrate properly, and the amount of things that you were making mistakes on was quite funny, and to show that in the documentary was really nice. But I won't bring up those points because I don't want to talk people out of not going to watch the documentary themselves, because it is a good, fascinating hour and 45 minutes.
I could share one that I didn't share in the documentary.
Okay, go on then.
So, I was training on Sunday in my gym. Go in on Monday, and I've trained, and I've gone into the changing room to shower. I've gone into the shower room to shower, and I have a green towel. So I've gone to shower, pick up my green towel, and I'm like, oh, I must have left my towel there yesterday. Jana will kill me. They're our best towels. I must take that with me. So I end up walking out into the changing room with both towels, right? Start obviously getting ready. And then one of the members comes to me and is like, John, you've taken my towel. And I'm like, but I left this yesterday. And he's like, no. And then I tried to explain, oh, I'm doing a contest prep. I'm really sorry. My head isn't, I'm not quite in the game. And he just looked at me as if I was an absolute lunatic. He's just like, I was like, but you can see they're the same sort of towels. And he's just like, no, he just didn't get it at all. So like things like that, just like losing my mind.
One of the other topics I'm a big fan of talking about in fitness is kind of stress as a whole, how we sleep, how we move, and the things that we often use to cover up that. And one of the topics that surrounds this is the use of caffeine. When you were going through your prep and things were getting hard, was there at any point did you find yourself almost using more caffeine, more stimulation to kind of, you had to do some tough workouts, right? And when you're feeling low, were you like, well, actually, I'll have a bit stronger cup of coffee, I'll have a bit stronger, pre-workout drink or whatever? How did that evolve for you?
I've always been anti pre-workouts. I don't know how you feel about pre-workouts, but they've never really been my thing. I feel like you get the intensity from yourself, right? I never had a problem with intensity. I did play around with a relatively safe pre-workout, which was from Blue Star, the company that I was working with. And I also did start to drink a little more coffee. So I think I had a triple espresso every morning, which I don't do now. And I think, I don't know whether it was more mental than anything, but it was just the one thing I could have. Like I felt like I could have that in the morning. It was my ritual. You become very ritualistic, especially when you're training towards something and everything's so rigid. I had my coffee before I trained, 10 minutes before, if I didn't have the pre-workout. So I found, I like coffee, but I also understand the effect on the adrenal glands. And then obviously there's a counter effect that means that you can lose sleep, etc. So I did rely a little on caffeine. Yeah, I'd say, I think anybody who's doing shows generally, again, a lot of people will choose those really, really strong pre-workouts. Like I think they're more dangerous than anything, to be fair.
See, and this is where you and me are trying to enable and empower people to make these intelligent decisions, because if you don't get the right information post-contest prep, as you know, these habits stay. You might carry on doing the triple espressos, the strong pre-work, all that kind of stuff. And actually, are people standing back and go, hang on a second, this habit was to support this journey. I'm now no longer on that journey. I can drop that habit. I need to step back. It's like what you had to do with almost the weigh-in thing. You know, you had to step back and go, "Oh, John, no, this isn't healthy. Why am I doing this?" But are people being self-reflective and self-analytical enough to get through that process with themselves?
I think most people end up going on autopilot, and I think the great thing about having a coach a good coach and that's what we're trying to help people here, is trying to get them to choose good coaches and coaches that work with them after the show, is to have that accountability post-show as well. Because otherwise, it's so rigid. You either go, I think from what I see, you either go too far in one direction or the other direction. So you have the people that give up potentially the training for a period of time, which isn't a bad thing, but then yo-yo, like they eat everything in sight. They go up, they jack up their calories to a ridiculous level and then balloon because their body's not ready to take those calories. Or you have the people that continually go through this training regime and don't change their calories, don't change their macros, and as you say, put pressure on their bodies longer term. And there's no one to say, oh, hey, you shouldn't, you don't need to be doing this right now. What are you doing? Because they're either associating themselves with people that are competing. It's a real community, which I was thankful to be able to be welcomed into whilst doing this project. But you find that, or they're isolated. They're very isolated. You see them in the gym on their own, and posting Instagram photos of themselves, and the community is an online community of people doing exactly the same thing, there's nothing wrong with the community. It's just, who checks in with them? And I think building that community, or trying to build a community around peak physique or anything really to try and help people after the show is something that I would be really excited to do.
Because in theory, I mean, a lot of coaches that sell this kind of stuff will sell, a 16-week prep package, a 20-week prep package. Really, a coach should be selling a 30-week prep package, because actually the 6, 8, 10 weeks afterwards is probably the most delicate time frame to bring someone, we'll call it, back to normal.
Yeah, it's the most important time. Having been through it myself and having had that post-show support with Scott, but also, having Jenna check me, having the knowledge base that I have as well. If you are getting a coach and they're not providing post-show support, or you're not getting post-show support, potentially that's dangerous long term. That's very, very dangerous long term. Especially taking into consideration how extreme this situation, the contest prep is.
So with looking at hiring a coach, which people might be thinking, well, how do I hire a coach? What do I look out for? What advice would you give someone? Maybe what kind of questions should I ask? What should I look out for? Do you have any advice on that?
I mean, and this is based on the experience and some of the information we've got from, interviewing people throughout the course of the documentary. I think people will tend to choose a coach based on how that coach looked when they competed. And I think a lot of coaches out there are selling themselves based on those photos, or a photo of another athlete that they've done well with. But I think people need to be asking more questions of the coaches, as opposed to just saying, okay, I'm going to go with this person. If this coach is offering post-show support, that's a good thing. If they send a generic program and they don't ask to see any previous information about diet and nutrition, macros and calories being consumed. I know you talk about calorie ceilings, and I totally agree with that. Is this coach going to give them daily, weekly check-ins? Are they only going to check in with them once a month? That's a big no-no. I was checking in with Scott daily, and we will talk about my mood, my energy levels. But is this coach going to be as scientific as possible and as specific as possible? They're the questions you want to ask. And if they're not willing to give you that sort of support, then you need to find somebody else. Because you need a real hands-on coach that's going to look at your form, going to prescribe specific dietary, a specific diet for you, sorry, and you need to ask questions, and you need to make sure that coach is going to be there post show, and they're going to check in with you at least once a week.
I think as a whole, I mean, this is something I would highly recommend anyway. I mean, we have a group of online coaches at Body Type Nutrition, and we say to people, look, let's do a 15-minute free Skype because we coach online. We want to make sure we're the right people for you. You need to be able to ask us questions. You need to be comfortable with that. And, you know, I do think there's too much trust coming from people by just looking at a photo and going, well, he looks ripped, I'll get him as a coach. And, you know, if I'm a coach and I'm going to work in a contest prep space, I'm going to pick my best success story. And I might only have one of them out of 30 people. Yeah. So, you know, you almost need to say, well, where are the other ones? Let me have a look at the other ones. And then, again, like we've been talking today, these last two podcasts, kind of retrospectively look at the problems that we've talked about and bring those problems up with the coach and start to say, well, yeah, how do you track? What's your protocol if this happens? How do we check in with, you know, all that stuff. So, yeah, please, if anyone's considering this, please be really diligent.
I think something else that I didn't touch on is, like, if they're asking you to take a bunch of supplements, like, why? What supplements? If they're harmful fat burners, if they're, you know, diuretics, straight away. If someone's telling you to take a diuretic, I think my doctor covered it quite well. You know, no, just don't do it. Like, it's the health risks and the, you know, consequences to that action could be terrible.
Big time. So we're going to wrap up. John, I'm intrigued to kind of ask a bit of a open, generalised question based on what you feel we haven't covered today. Because I want to ensure that you get a chance to kind of share your opinion as a whole on this. If someone's going to consider doing this process, is there any advice you want to give to people that we haven't covered already?
I think we've covered a lot. But I suppose I would sign off with, you know, I went into this with a full purpose of trying to show people and give people the information they need to better understand this side of the industry and the process, and to make healthy, well-informed decisions about choosing a coach, choosing a diet and program, and you know, the posing, everything that goes into getting ready for a show. I didn't expect to have such an incredible experience. It was an incredible experience. I think when you watch the documentary, you'll see there were some highs, there were some lows, and we wanted to show the audience everything. So go into it with your eyes open. By no means am I saying this isn't a great goal to work towards. I enjoyed it, and I'm back to normal now. But you have to understand yourself. If you've had depression and you've had an eating disorder and you've had some issues, you've been through some turmoil, and even if you haven't, you know, there are some, you know, serious questions you have to ask yourself. You know, is it really? Why am I doing it? Is it worth it? What's my goal purpose? If you want to get a great physique, you can get a great physique without pushing your body to this extreme. If you actually want to compete, make sure, my advice is to do this the natural route, and make sure you have all the information that you need. Ask the right questions of the coach, research the coach, and if you want to hit me up, you know, Peak Physique Facebook page, fire away and ask some questions. I mean, I don't have all the answers. I'm not an expert, but, you know, we've done this for a reason, and hopefully we've given as much information as we can. And as I say, we're throwing all our videos up on YouTube and Facebook. There's lots more information coming out of this documentary that we couldn't put in there. Lots of resources for you guys to use, and we'll just keep trying to help. So spread the word.
Nice. Right, John. Let's sign off by telling everyone where they can go and watch the film again. You've got a discount code for them, and your kind of your Twitter, because you just mentioned Facebook.
Yeah, so you can download Peak Physique Journey to the Stage at www.peakphysiquefilm.com or directly via Vimeo. If you go to Vimeo directly, you can use the Ben Coomber discount code, and you'll get it for $3.99 sterling, I believe, £3.99. And you click rent. You have to join Vimeo, so it asks you for your email, and you create a password. Click rent and enter Ben Coomber in, and if you're the lucky first 200 people, you'll get the discount. I think it's $3.99. We also have a YouTube and Twitter, so check us out on Twitter and YouTube and Facebook. And if you have any questions, this was all a learning experience for me. We're trying to give as much information back out there. Spread the word. We're trying to help people make well-informed, good decisions about their life and health and well-being.
Well, Jon, you got my support. I really enjoyed the documentary. Watched it a couple of days ago on the train home. It was very enjoyable. It was good insight. You didn't kind of overplay any of the kind of, we'll call it the boring side of it. There wasn't any like long training shots where we just sat there watching you do bench presses and stuff. All the information was really juicy. We see all the dark side of it. We see the interactions between you and your wife and how that was kind of a bit sketchy. All the hard bits, the bits where you were like, do you know what, I'm not feeling this today. There was an awful lot of honesty in it, and I kind of really appreciate your kind of angle on it. So well done. I think it's a triumph. I think people that are interested in this, look, for $3.99, like, go and grab a copy, Jesus. And just to repeat that code, that's BEN space COOMBER, and Jon on Twitter is Peak Physique 15, and on Facebook is JM Personal Training and Peak Physique as well, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And then, you know what? If people want to purchase it, they can purchase it. You can rent it, and I think you have it for a week. If they actually want to buy it, they can buy it there too. So, but not with your code.
Sweet. Jon, thank you very much for coming on the show and sharing your journey. It's been brilliant. Wish you all the best with the success with the film. I will support it as much as I can, and hopefully a good handful of the people listening today will be intrigued and go and grab a copy for themselves.
We really appreciate it, Ben. Thank you for listening and having me on your show, and hope you guys enjoy the film.
We do. Right, if you've enjoyed the show, everyone, please do me a massive favour. Leave a review on iTunes if you haven't done. I'm sure Jon's going to support this show. So if you happen to have come to this show as a result from Jon's audience, then if you haven't left me a review on iTunes and you've enjoyed it, please do it. It takes 2 minutes. It helps support the show and new people finding this information. So it really does support the show in iTunes. Chat with me and Jon on Twitter. Ask a question. Post on Facebook. Interact. Me and Jon are putting ourselves out there for to help you guys and gals. So use that help. Otherwise, I will see you on next week's show. So in the meantime, stay awesome. Hey everyone, Ben Coomber Radio, episode number, don't know, doesn't matter. Anyway, we're going to be talking about bodybuilding today. Bodybuilding, contest prep, getting lean,